Everyone please stand. Back to the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for being here. Do we need more chairs? You guys, there's one right here. Did the board have a chance to look over the agenda? So,
I motion to adopt next agenda.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Val. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carried. The minutes of March 9th, 26.
Make a motion to approve the minutes at 3/9/26.
March 9th, 2026.
And second that.
Seconded by Jay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
So before we get into the road report, if we could skip to the community development, if you don't mind, the outdoor rec hub concept plan.
Want to welcome Sarah. To see your face, Sarah.
Welcome back.
Chair.
Come on.
I'm taking your girl spot.
Yeah, how do you want?
We can even put your name on it if we want to come back on.
Okay. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It feels more natural here. Hi, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for some time on the agenda tonight. So I am, I think you have one new select board member. Welcome. I'm Sarah Pelkey. I am the former community development director for the town of Poultney. And am currently working as the director of economic development for CEDAR, Chamber and Economic Development of the Rutland region. And I'm here tonight to introduce this project and provide some background on the outdoor rec hub project that we have a slideshow for. Tom Hand from Siteform Studio is online. And the rest of the consulting team is Andrew Volansky and John Severinghouse from Volansky Studios. So Tom, if you're there, hello and welcome. And you can pull up the presentation and get into the project.
Yes, hi everyone. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
And John and Andrew, do you want to say hello? Make sure the audio works first.
Yeah, there we go. Good evening,
There we
everyone.
are.
Gotcha.
Hello.
Hello.
Perfect. So my name, as Sarah mentioned, is Tom Hand, and I, as well as Andrew and John, I work for Siteform Studio. They work for Volansky Studio Architects, both out of Stowe, Vermont, but with good, strong connections to some of the local residents down in Poultney. And we saw this RFP when it came out. One of the precedent projects that was referenced was Ranch Camp, which is beloved here in Stowe, of which Andrew and John were involved with from the architectural standpoint, and as well as we're all probably frequent users, both of food and libations and the bike shop that they have there as well. So it's felt like a really natural and awesome opportunity for us to get involved. And really appreciate the opportunity to do that. John and Andrew, I don't know if you guys want to say anything else just to intro, but then we can dive right into the presentation that the group has worked on.
Just real quickly, Andrew Volansky, and I'd second what Tom mentioned earlier, that we saw the opportunity to get involved in this, and we were pretty excited about it. We've known Hardy and Catron for a long time, and again, our involvement with Ranch Camp here in Stowe, and just being involved in the mountain biking community, member of Stowe Trails Partnership, and a member of the Trail Committee as well. We kind of understand what mountain biking can do for a community, and just again, we're really excited to be a part of this. So.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And John Silverhouse, I think that does about sum it up. I think, for us, it's outdoor recreation is near and dear, and understanding the value in creating a kind of a community hub or community center for those activities is something that I think we bring a lot to. So we're again excited to share our work with the Towns and Trails Committee with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
See if I can bring this up for everyone.
Okay. While you're doing that, it might be useful. So this project was forwarded and guided by what's called the Town to Trails Steering Committee that has been in existence in Poultney for in different variations for over 5 to 6 years, I'd say at least. I saw Katrin was online, so Katrin is on that committee. Nick, who's in the room, is on the committee. Nick Stark. Michelle has been on the committee in the past. Cheryl, Paul, myself. And sorry if I'm forgetting anyone, but oh, there's Courtney. So some of the folks from Slate Valley Trails have been on this committee as well. And it has been in its current iteration since the planning project, that the Better Connections planning project that we'll talk about a little bit more here. So this is a hub for Poultney. It's an outdoor recreation hub concept with the idea that it would result in a place where you could gather with family, friends, and community, a location to start an outdoor adventure or finish an outdoor adventure in the community, play and rest and enjoy the river. So the location, which is on a slide a little bit further along, is that has been under study for about 2 years, is the highway garage, the location of the existing highway garage. So we can see a rendering that came out of the process in the background, a beautiful new building that is a concept for the site. So you could go ahead to the next slide, Tom. So why an outdoor recreation hub? We talked a little bit about the planning, and I know many of you know, many people in the Poultney community have been a part of planning for outdoor recreation economy for almost a decade now. This was, a key economic driver that was identified when the Green Mountain College closed as a way to pivot your economy to something that is resilient and place-based and takes advantage of the recreational assets that are here. So, the Recreation Economy for Rural Communities planning process took place in 2021. And that, some of you may remember, that was the online workshop series where we had between 80 to 100 people in the community participating and guiding that, that action plan. So an outdoor recreation hub was identified at that time as something that would be a key economic driver and help to sort of further the identity of outdoor recreation in Poultney. So it's identified as a key part of advancing that economy. I think you can go ahead, Tom. A little bit more on the background. Town and Trails I mentioned, but this also provides on the left a summary of some of the other planning projects that the community has undertaken to try to understand how to create a resilient outdoor recreation economy in Poultney. So the Recreation Economy for Rural Communities, that's an EPA technical assistance program that was actually applied for, I think, by Paul and Jonas and Katrin way back in the day. And that was the first planning project that really comprehensively looked at outdoor recreation as a whole. So following that is the Town to Trails planning project in 2023, and that was a Better Connections grant, which is funded by the Agency of Commerce and Community Development and the Vermont Transportation Agency. So those two agencies fund Better Connections projects to essentially identify places that can be better connected to your downtown. So you have more people kind of moving throughout the community on those recreational assets and also coming into your downtown for downtown revitalization, opening new businesses and driving the economy that way. So the Rec Hub concept would really start to become organized under that planning project. I think that the team there had identified almost, I think it was 7 locations in the community that could serve as a Rec Hub location. Some were interim, some were taking advantage of the current conditions. And the highway garage was always part of that planning consideration because of its location and its ability to serve that function very, very well. So following that, there was an outdoor recreation roundtable grant, an implementation grant, which was applied for by the town in 2024 and was led by the Town Trails Committee through that process and through to now. So this is the final presentation of that outdoor recreation roundtable grant. And the architects and landscape architect team that was selected to do that are the folks that are here tonight to share with you the concept designs for the hub.
And I would just add in as well that, Town to Trails, as Sarah mentioned, identified 6 or 7 various sites throughout town for potential rec hub and did little vignettes, sketches of some of them. But, out of that process, they identified that, this particular site at the town garage at the corner of Furnace and Route 30 really was kind of the preferred location. And they gave, a variety of different elements of which could be included at the rec hub, but really no structure or framework to like, what is the building? How big is the building? And really from a site program, what is there? So, this whole project and process was really to start to put a lens onto both the building and the architecture in that site and envision what could be if we tried to create, a location that served those initial goals and purposes for a hub for Poultney that really helped to, re-energize recreation as an economy driver within the community.
So this slide shows you a little bit of the public engagement process that took place during the Town to Trails planning efforts, or during the Better Connections planning. We had an excellent consultant that was supporting that planning initiative with public engagement, and there was outreach to the schools, to the elementary school, to the high school, to the senior center, to the library. All sorts of civic organizations and nonprofits participated in this. And so we feel like we're moving into this with a really broad sort of understanding by the community and at least input from the community as to what they are desiring to see in this community. So we have a little quote here: the community vision is a central space repository where people can gather and obtain information for events, trails, facilities, and amenities in the town and surrounding areas as part of their recreating. So that came directly from that planning process, which took place between 2021 and 2023. Yeah, and I think, just so folks know, if they're looking for more information on any of these planning projects, and there's a really deep bench here, all of it is online on the Planning Commission's website. It's poultneyplanning.com. So if you want to dig in a little bit more to the history of this planning, that's all available for public to view.
And I think we also have some quick links at the end of the presentation directly to some of those additional planning documents.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, so here are a few of the elements that sort of formed the basis for the conceptual concepts that the consultant team put together and the Town to Trails Committee helped to organize. And this is what the community is telling us through all of these planning initiatives that they're looking for as key elements: an indoor community space, trail maps and information, public restrooms, an outdoor pavilion, a water filler fountain, playground elements, picnic tables, benches, and business and tourism directory. And then other desired elements include parking, daytime and overnight. I know from working in the community for 5 years, there's becoming a greater need for overnight parking and people wanting to stay in the community and to use these recreational assets and make a weekend of it or longer. So the community is also looking for a meetup location for events. Another thing that sometimes Poultney struggles to find space to host events for the number of people that would like to come here for that type of thing. Bike racks and lockers, outdoor fitness stations. A skate park has been on the wish list for quite a while. Space for public art, vendors, and food trucks. Community garden, and biking distance to trailheads, within biking distance to the trailheads, which at the last iteration, the highway garage is almost to within a half a mile of the Slate Valley Trails network, and is becoming closer and closer to the downtown. And then walking distance to downtown. So one of the key components of this site is that it is located next to the senior center. It's across the street from the high school. It's proximate, it's abutting a residential area. And it's definitely within walking distance to your downtown to connect with other assets like the D&H Rail Trail and then the shops and restaurants. So Tom, I think this is my slide as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. So sorry, I got into that a little bit, but now you've got an aerial to make sense of it. So on the right, you can see the parcel. The senior center is part of the town-owned parcel in this location. You can see the top of the sand shed, the highway garage, and then the Poultney River is to the south. So, you know,
Oops,
much.
sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Oh, so to the west, you can see the driveway that goes back into the housing development that's in back, and then there is across the street the high school and a few other houses. So some of the constraints for this particular site that were identified during the planning process is that you know, a new site for the town garage is not yet secured. It's not yet known what would happen to the town garage. I know the community has been talking about this for some time, but were this to be redeveloped as an outdoor recreation hub or mixed use concept, the highway garage would need to be relocated. So the site may need remediation. Its historic uses were a bit more involved. Sorry, it's not the right word. Historically, there were some industrial uses on the site, and the highway garage also has some industrial uses. So remediation would be a key part of a redevelopment plan. The existing buildings are not conducive to rec hub use. It was investigated as to whether there could be some adaptive reuse of those buildings, and during this process, and have found that the buildings are not conducive to the new use. Floodway boundaries are considered, and I'm sure the consultant team can share a little bit more about that in their plans. But the Poultney River is abutting the site to the south. Need to incorporate municipal stormwater from Furnace Street. So the Poultney Meadowee Conservation District has been a wonderful partner to all of these planning efforts, and they've been on this site many times, looking for ways to mitigate runoff from the street, from the parking lot that's at the highway, or sorry, at the high school, and sort of the impervious surfaces that are on the site. So there has been some preliminary analysis about how stormwater could be treated on the site as part of the analysis. And then, of course, the need to identify funding, because this is a large scale redevelopment project, and it would be, you know, part of the project to continue to identify funding sources. Although there's a lot of interest in this type of redevelopment because it not only provides economic impact and supports the outdoor recreation economy, it would also support the highway garage being in a location that potentially would be better suited to its use, but it also is protective of the natural resources that exist in the area. So there tends to be, you know, it's a project that hits a lot of targets at the same time. So some of those benefits are the largest parcel recommended from town to trails, the 4-acre parcel. It's a good sized parcel. There's adequate land to host desired programs and community gathering spaces, indoors and outdoors. It's proximate to the high school and the senior center. So you're hitting groups that would have access to the amenities that would be on the site. It would be a way to support both the seniors and the youth in the community as well. It's proximate to the downtown and existing and planned recreational trails. And then the Poultney River access and frontage that I talked about just a little bit. So now I'll turn the presentation over to Tom and Andrew and John, and they can share a little bit more with you about what they've come up with.
Sure, thank you. So, starting kind of at the existing conditions level, Sarah did just run through, the existing structures that are on the site. Obviously, one of the additional constraints is, I gotta stop actually clicking the slide or else it switches on me. So the Young at Heart Senior Center, along with its associated parking and the walking loop that's there, so existing constraints there. But then the remaining structures, the gas pumps, the garage, some of the materials storage buildings and the salt shed, the envision is like, let's look at this as an entirely new site, blank slate, other than the senior center, and envision, what possibly could happen here. So, we started the process by looking at various, diagrams and schematics. I think there are 5 or 6 different diagrams of how the site could get laid out that we studied, and kind of worked through the pros and cons of each of those. Additionally, you have the river, which has, floodway and floodplain areas. Historically, it sounds like there hasn't really been any substantial flooding of this particular site through any of the large events that we've had over the past, decade or two. But, obviously, through A&R, it's important to keep in mind both, from a design standpoint, but also down the road, potential permitting, what you can do in terms of site and building development relative to the river and its associated boundaries. And then, you can see that the existing structures are pretty much outside of all of that area. However, there is a lot of material and kind of debris storage and piling that happens in this back portion of the site closest to the river. And, the whole committee and consultant team really saw this as an opportunity to clean that up. And then as a recreational site, really create the ability to have almost like a passive green space or park along the river, create access to the river, and you'll see even, potential trail connections across the river when we get to the concepts. So out of the process, what we really discovered through our conversations, with the committee and the various groups involved was that, the town is kind of missing a official town green. I think where, the college campus used to act like that in a way, I think now what the community really felt like is, let's see if we can create an opportunity, actually create some frontage along Furnace Street and create the feeling of a town green that's, surrounding the site and can really be a place to bring the whole community together, irregardless of if they're, actively going there to, ride a bicycle or, take a boat out on the river. The other idea and concept that came through our diagrams and conversation was this idea of creating a mixed-use neighborhood, thinking not just of the rec hub, but also other opportunities to help the Poultney as a community try to develop the site, thinking not in any specific detail, but of the idea of the economics of how do we create some development opportunity while also helping spur the rec hub project along. So the idea that you could create residential in addition to the rec hub and also some retail and commercial space as well, and really create a mixed-use neighborhood that then start to anchor this east end of town. It's already been mentioned, the river access as well as protection, the goal of creating additional public parking as well as public restrooms. We, did considerations of whether, camping in the parking lot was something, that we would be open to, or even, study, pull-off sites. And, we ended up erring against that, not carrying it as one of the programs, final program recommendations, but, we did explore it. But we have, offered a couple of concepts for, both daytime and, as Sarah mentioned, overnight parking through both lots and potential on-street parking. And then also thinking about kind of different age groups within the community, creating kind of a dedicated municipal outdoor playground or play space. And then, as I said earlier, generating revenue, whether it's through office, retail, cafe space within the rec hub, as well as the final point, developing housing, subdividing the 4-acre parcel to create a development opportunity to help with the economics and funding of a potential project in the future. So those were the goals that came out of our conversations, in addition to the actual program elements that we reviewed a slide or two ago. So we developed or landed on 2 different concepts, concept A and concept B. So I'll run through both of them quickly. So concept A is basically a new streetscape. So this road comes off of Furnace Street and kind of turns around and then meets up with Autumn Way, a realigned Autumn Way. What you end up doing is creating a little bit of a neighborhood block. So you have the rec hub with its back up against the Young at Heart Senior Center, with on-street parking and gracious sidewalks and kind of plaza spaces along the front of the rec hub that lead you further into the site. A dedicated parking lot with even some opportunity for a solar canopy, which was another idea that was requested out of the committee over some of the parking spaces. And then really in the core of the site, developing 5 or 6 additional residential units. They could be condos, they could be townhomes, within the core of that, which would have, on-street parking associated with those units, and really starting to create a bit of a dense development on a very separate parcel within the overall development in order to support the town's desired development. So what you end up with is, the higher intensity development outside of the floodways and floodplains, closer to Furnace Street, and associated more with the hardscape and the streetscape and the roadways and parking, and then preserving the maximum amount of the balance of the site for recreational uses along the entire river corridor. So you end up with major trail connections all the way from the street down through the site, potentially even a bridge that could get you across the river if there are ever any trails that were to show up over there. Part of the reasoning for that too is because of the tightness of this Route 30 roadway through here and kind of the shoulders as you cross the bridge. Our goal here was are there safe ways that could get you kind of further to the other trails down in this direction, beyond dumping people out onto Furnace Street and around the corner. There is existing sidewalks here along Furnace Street, make it really great to get you either across to the high school or up towards downtown Poultney. So then from there we have other circulation pathways, loops, that go down to the river, that go around the site, areas for stormwater to be handled for both, the Furnace Street area that we're talking about previously, as well as on-site stormwater for the development on this project. Things like a pump track, and then over here near the rec hub, a playground, an outdoor playground space. Both of those a bit more proximate to the parking.
Surprised you or shocked you, even though you.
Okay. Just sounds like some background noise. And then, really the balance of this site being left open as it slopes down towards the river, and thinking if you had outdoor community events, Friday night movies, things like that, that could be really a great place to gather as a community with, the view through the trees towards the river and the fields beyond. We also looked at trying to clean up the streetscape along Furnace Street, kind of extending the sidewalk, adding a bit of an island and, parking separation between the Young at Heart parking lot and Furnace Street, including some additional streetscape trees and whatnot, just to help with the beautification of Furnace Street, now that this is a new gateway into the community and bringing people back into the site. Other minor elements, things like, bike racks, as was talked about earlier, when we look at the floor plans for the buildings, places for, maps, trail maps, kiosks, things like that. So that's the overall layout of concept A. And I think for now, maybe we did dive into the building. Yes. John or Andrew?
Okay, thank you, Tom. So these are two perspective conceptual sketches of the Rec Hub building in the concept A, assuming the concept A siting that Tom just described. The arrows and kind of sketch lettering indicate Furnace Street to Looker's left and the Poultney River to Looker's right.
This is the architect.
And you can see bikes and picnic tables organized adjacent to parking and the street that would go through to move a visitor deeper into the site. The buildings themselves are intended to accommodate both the community room and the bathrooms. Those we were working with the Town of the Trails Committee and kind of identified as really the core program or the core need. So the community space as well as bathrooms would be kind of right where Tom's using the laser pointer. Then to the left, retail and offices. The retail and offices component of this building here would, as Tom was mentioning earlier, that could potentially be a funding mechanism, either for first cost, initial development cost, or ongoing kind of a lease type arrangement. The idea being that maybe there's an outdoor gear store there. Maybe there's a bike shop that wants to relocate there. Then, Tom, could you point to the bottom right image between the two buildings? So right in this area, and we'll show some of this in the floor plan sketches on the next slide, but right in that area is the connection between kind of front of the house and back of the house. Front of the house being retail and storefront that really wants to be addressing Furnace Street. And in the middle could be a great spot for a snack bar. Think coffee, breakfast treats, or maybe the entire area is designed with enough square footage. Maybe that entire section of the building is actually a restaurant. But that kind of flexibility is built into some of the design and the programming that we did with the committee. In terms of the architecture itself that we're looking at, we're wanting to kind of reference or respect the existing architecture in the town of Poultney, where we have relatively steep roofs. We live in Vermont, we have rain, we have snow. We want to keep all of that away from our buildings, but also give it a little bit of a forward-looking, bit of a contemporary angle as well by, using larger windows, welcoming the daylight in, letting folks from the street who are driving by really feel like they've arrived at a destination, whether they're needing to get the kids out of the car as fast as they can to get to snacks and bathrooms, or they want to visit retail up front, check out a bike shop, or perhaps they're arriving in the evening to a community room event, or maybe even a future select board meeting. Tom, let's move to the floor plan sketches. Thank you. So some of what I'm describing here, I think is a little bit, or what I've been describing is a little bit easier to understand looking in floor plan, where, again, we have the similar arrows, Furnace Street, Looker's left, Poultney River, Looker's right. The tenant A, as we're imagining it, would be retail, addressing Furnace Street. Then tenant B, snack bar, kind of right in the middle, anchoring the two buildings together. Offices, I neglected to mention that earlier. Offices were also, or small office space was kind of another part of the core program that we talked about, where we have room for a couple of desks, conference room, waiting area. But again, it's kind of modular and flexible in the way that it's designed. It could accommodate a variety of office type uses, or even expansion of tenant B space, should that be more of a sit down type of space. Then directly adjacent to the main entrance, we'd have bathrooms, public bathrooms that would be in an enclosed heated space. We did talk a little bit about what the operating protocol might be, how much it's staffed or not to arrive at a conclusion, so to speak, but really to understand what the parameters we might be working with and what might be most important to different user groups. So here in the winter months, staffed or unstaffed, The bathrooms could be open year round. They're heated, they're comfortable, plumbing's taken care of, and all of that. Then in and to the right from the main entrance would be the community room, where we thought maybe 50, 75, maybe at most 100 people, something like that. And in a future design phase, that would be the kind of thing that we'd really drill down into. How many folks are going to be in that space? But could be a select board meeting, could be a movie night, just any kind of event where we're looking for that flexible community space that folks can arrive to. Then a little bit hard to see, but the kiosk, trail map, area info, and tools would be directly across from the water filler area when you enter. That would be the covered indoor space for that. We also were planning to have that outdoors as well, where you can see the arrow that says roof above. That's kind of a large covered porch or covered terrace area. And we could have some outdoor seating there. Maybe it's just sit down and hang out, put your hiking boots on, and could also have picnic tables. But again, that's where we'd locate a kiosk, a trail map, area info, tools, what a user might be looking for, a visitor might be looking for once they arrive to Poultney. And I think, yeah, that's the building.
Yes, that was concept A, kind of front to back site through the building architecture. Now we'll look at concept B. And I will say that I don't know that either concept was weighted more heavily one versus the other. Some people may have their preferences, but I think one of the next steps is really to drill into flexibility. I guess one thing, John, maybe we didn't talk about. Let me just go back here. Is phasing was another thing we had talked about, and it will become more easily apparent in concept B. However, for concept A, there was this consideration that maybe like a community room and the restrooms are a phase A, and tenant spaces are phase B, or vice versa. So what John and Andrew have tried to also do with their building, easy to see kind of in the architectures that, you could have a portion of that building that's constructed, and then as funding and interest becomes, increased, a second portion of that structure could get added on and kind of spliced into the overall building. In concept B, we actually tried to break the buildings apart, so that the phasing becomes not from adding on to buildings, but actually constructing entirely new buildings as the development occurs. So the difference with concept B is you still have an entry, pretty much similar to the concept A, which is also pretty close to where the existing curb cut into the town garage site is. However, this just goes in and feeds into an isolated, parking lot loop, entirely dedicated to the rec hub and the park parcel. That has, the core rec hub in concept B in this location, which is community room, as well as the restroom and storage and maintenance things with a, covered overhang similar to concept A in that area. And then, additional tenant spaces as they come along, kind of also arrayed around a central plaza that's, hanging off of the edge of the parking area here. These lighter blue squares or rectangles, the idea that, a food truck could come and pull into these spaces and allow, say before a tenant or even on popular events, recreation themed events, a place to get additional food options, as events are occurring, community events. And then the other really great thing about concept B now is that the park really goes all the way. It starts at Furnace Street, and then you've got a pedestrian network that pulls you all the way through the site, allowing you to come into the site and have, recreational opportunities, the playground, the pump track, the plaza space, all directly off of this pedestrian spine. We maintained the idea of the residential development, but then mirrored some of the existing residential multifamily development at the end of Autumn Way by saying, maybe we just end up taking a portion of the, the western part of the site, that would have a parking lot and that structure. And so maybe you don't get as much development along the river, but that's in exchange for allowing the park use that's happening along the river frontage to really come all the way up through the site in support of the rest of the other amenities that are here. So again, a playground very much associated with the rec hub development, kind of the plaza spaces, lots of space for bike racks. I believe we talked about a pump track. There are also conversations about, is there a skate park? So there's room for lots of different recreational amenities, as well as just lots of green space. And then along Autumn Way, kind of coming all the way through the site, is the consideration of drainage and stormwater treatment, so that all the water from Autumn Way and Furnace Street and this development are filtering into what could be a really nice swale, planted swale, and ultimately ending up in some stormwater treatment before that water is released to the Poultney River. And then similarly in concept A, addressing a sidewalk and streetscape along Furnace Street.
Thanks, Tom. And here for concept B, it's really the same core program, just broken apart in a different way to distribute itself across the site and arrange around the courtyard with the food trucks. We would see the architecture and really responding the same way to the existing buildings, the houses along Furnace Street. Again, steep roofs and then a connecting flat roof over the two. What's interesting to us about this one is we're able to, actually, this is better looked at in, could you go back to the site for a second, Tom? So I want to talk about the breezeway between the two buildings. So when you arrive at the parking, we created the breezeway by pulling apart the community room and the bathrooms as well as the tenant spaces, so that one could really intuitively and visually move from arriving at the major parking area to the more recreationally oriented part of the site with the pump track, playground, and kind of back of the house or heart of the courtyard type space. We can probably go back to the architecture now. So yeah, again, you can see the breezeway separating the community room, utilities and storage, bathroom, snack bar. Then over to drawing left, again, a little closer to Furnace Street, we'd have a standalone retail building. In this scheme, and as I'm sure you saw on the site plan, there would be a couple of additional buildings to design, some architecture that would be very, very similar to what we showed in the previous renderings, the site perspective, the previous perspective, excuse me. We'd mold that kind of architectural design style to fit a more dispersed or distributed group of buildings.
And again, on this scheme, there's some pretty gracious covered outdoor space, in both the John and Andrew's concept A and B. The idea is that community room, that interior community room, was envisioned with lots of doorways and glass to dump and spill right out into this covered space, so that throughout the summer when you have events and like really nice weather, those doors could be open, or if it's inclement weather, you could still have place to kind of gather, sit at picnic tables underneath the roof covering. And then finally, we just tried to provide some character imagery, something to get people even more excited, maybe to envision at least what's in our design mind, design eye, as we're thinking about this. So architectural types for how potential row housing or townhomes for that concept A option. The character of, gracious pedestrian walkways and lawn strips where people are gathering, the pump track or trails that are, leading down to the river. Again, kind of this nature-based adventure playground, associated with, walking paths and lawn. and, casual gathering spots, people might even decide, let's pull the seating out from underneath that canopy on the building and directly into the lawn on nice days. The idea, like, do you set up a screen at along the edge of the river, and you have large groups of people in the community and visitors coming for outdoor events, concerts, movies, things like that. And then that concept B option, maybe not to this expansiveness as this image, but the idea you have food trucks kind of located around a central plaza with outdoor seating associated with some of those, retail and community room buildings that John just described, and things like, little folly buildings, covered bike racks, picnic tables, different plantings, just trying to bring nature back into the site as it's developed and really create a comprehensive park type setting for the rec hub and the associated program going along with it.
Maybe me again. Thank you very much, Tom and Andrew and John. That was an incredible presentation. And while I have the floor, I just want to thank you for an awesome project. You really have done a lot of work for the community. And so the next steps really for consideration would be, what happens to the town garage. There's been an alternative site study. It's a big question, and how to approach it is not going to be probably an easy thing to do. But so that would be the first step to figure out the highway garage. Site assessment and remediation would need to take place on that site to progress any redevelopment forward. And then detailed design, budget, and funding plans would be developed to further this. And just, I know I said it at the beginning, but this project was funded by the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, the Visioning Project, and Poultney was one of 3 communities in the country to receive this implementation grant in 2024. So also would like to extend thanks to that organization for helping to forward the conversation in this community. So I think that is the presentation, and I think we're open.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sarah. And I think Courtney and those guys here in the back. Stand right up. Come on. I do know it's been a long stretch, and it's been a lot of work and getting it out to everybody. So we do appreciate that. I know we have a ways to go, but it's nice to see all your work come to fruition. So great. And Sarah, of course. Hopefully you'll be able to come back at some point.
Happy to help.
Yeah. Perfect.
Come again, Sarah.
All right. I'll leave now.
With that being said. Move on to Joel.
So if we don't mind, can we
Forgot you.
talk about the MERP?
Certainly.
I mean, I don't mind if Joel has a
Oh, okay.
presentation. I'm already here.
Go ahead. I already plan on waiting.
All right. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Maggie O'Brien. I'm with the Rutland Regional Planning Commission. My official unofficial title is Emergency Management Planner, but I also am the lead for the Municipal Energy Resilience Program, or MERP. And maybe for some of the folks in the audience who aren't aware, the MERP program, as it's called, is born of Act 172, which was passed by the legislature in 2022. So one thing that you might not know is that behind vehicle emissions, leaky older municipal buildings are the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions in Vermont. Which surprised me when I first heard that, but when you think about it, it makes sense. There's how many municipalities and how many municipal buildings that were built in the 1800s, 1900s, since building codes have been updated, there's more efficient ways to build these buildings and have energy savings there. So recognizing that, the legislature took funding from ARPA and essentially tasks the Building and General Services, which is a state agency that normally looks after state-owned buildings, and says, hey, we have this money. Let's do assessments of all of our municipal towns in Vermont and determine based on something called energy burden, which is how much folks are paying for the same amounts of electricity. Basically, it's a sort of quantitative rating based on median income and some other things. Let's give these communities that have the higher energy burden ratings an extra boost and help start sealing up some of their buildings. And if there's any money left over, maybe start switching to more energy resiliency measures too. So things like having solar panels or having EV chargers, that sort of thing. So in the Rutland region, we had 9 municipalities and 1 fire district receive funding through this program. Everyone received assessments through various contractors hired by BGS. And then everyone submitted applications that were interested. Poultney was one of the lucky, not only to have both the town and the village receive money, but Poultney is the only town in the Rutland region that received the full 500K slug. So
Thank you, Sarah.
Oh, Jeremy.
yeah, that was my predecessor, Jeremy.
Okay.
He did a lot of that. So, and Jeremy left us in May 2025. He's still here, just to get a different job. He realized I fired but so I've taken over the program since then. And so you guys have had a lot on your plate, right? With the town garage, with the outdoor rec hub study, as we just saw, and with a bunch of other things. So MERP kind of fell on the back burner for a bit, and recognizing that the deadline is fast approaching for the disbursement of funds, Act 172 says all of the funding must be distributed by the state no later than December 31st, 2026. So yeah, we're getting there. So keeping that in mind, myself and my colleague Sean Betty have stepped in to give a more concentrated support role to you folks for both the town and the village. As our other municipalities have at the very least hired someone, or if not having already started or even finished construction in some cases. So you guys are a little behind, so we want to provide some of that extra support. So with that in mind, we set up weekly meetings back when Sarah was still part of the town. We started setting those up. I meet with Paul every week. And we've also pulled in Bruce Williams as a new clerk of the works for this project. So we helped develop the request for proposals for both the town and the village. So the buildings that were included in this award were the town office, the Young at Heart Senior Center, the Stonebridge Inn, and the town garage, and then the village, the old firehouse on Depot Street. So Sarah recognized from the outset that we probably wouldn't have, even though we got the full slug, it probably wouldn't cover all 4 buildings. So let's prioritize the 2 that are used the most, have the most certain future, and go from there. So we started with the town office and Young at Heart Senior Center. And so we developed and posted those RFPs. We had a mandatory pre-bid meeting in February. And we had a decent turnout for that. And so today was the day that was the deadline for bids. So happy to say that we have received bids. So yay, first hurdle cleared. But the village only received 1. So that makes your choice pretty easy there, or at least the village trustees' choice, I should say. And then for the town, we've received at least 3. And I say at least 3 because one of the ones we received this morning, I don't even remember what the name of the company was, only sent us like a quote, and that was it, and didn't provide any more information than that. I was like, I don't really think this counts as a proposal, but okay. So the ones that we have full-fledged proposals for is from Architend LLC, which is a locally based firm based here in Sudbury. Shelley Portoff and Jason McNulty, who is in partnership with Architend with All Points Construction. We have already had several towns in our region hire this firm for MERP projects. I've worked with these folks extensively. They are exceptional. They know what they're doing. They've been able to pull, I think they have 8 towns in their caseload right now. But that being said, they are starting to wrap some towns up, and they're like, yeah, this is late enough that we can work Poultney into our workload. We'd be happy to do that. So we have Architend, we have Turquoise America. For some reason, I keep wanting to call them Sapphire. But anyway, Turquoise America, a firm based outside of the state that submitted a proposal. They did not attend the pre-bid meeting, but even though we said mandatory, I use that more loosely because usually it's more helpful for the contractors to take a walk through the building and see what the problems are for themselves. But nevertheless, and then this afternoon, half an hour before the closing deadline, we got a proposal from J.C. Turner, whose name I've seen pop up a few times. They have done other MERP towns, not in our region, but elsewhere in the state. So I just wanted to come in front of the board to provide a couple of things to keep in mind while you're reviewing these bids. So given that the funding dispersal deadline is coming up quickly here, the good news is that construction does not have to be done in December of 2026. Act 172 gives us until 2028. So recognizing there might be overages to have those projects happen. But so the general guideline from Building and General Services when they did a site visit with us here in January was that as long as we have executed construction contracts for the full slug of money, then we're good to go, assuming we can get everything done in 2028. So keeping that in mind, I just want to refresh really quick. So Act 172 does have a list of priorities that must be met with this funding. So there is a very prescriptive guideline of which elements should be addressed first with the funding, because as we have seen across the states, we are having many towns run out of money in priorities 1 and 2 before they can get to priorities 3, 4, or 5. So, want to keep that very clear what the order of that is. So first, of course, being the building envelope. So air sealing being the most important factor in improving energy performance in existing buildings. Doesn't really make sense to put in new heat pumps when you still have a leaky building with a lot of that airflow escaping. And so obviously you want to reduce air leakage and heat loss first before everything else. So this could include weatherization, things like caulking, door and window restoration, assuming that's in alignment with any state or federal historic preservation requirements, waterproofing, and so on and so on. In many cases, we have seen contractors suggest conducting blower door tests, especially for those towns that received the so-called level 1 assessments, which Poultney was among those. Unfortunately, Bureau Veritas, which is one of the contractors that BGS hired to conduct these assessments, their reports are, shall we say, very poor. It has been a common gripe among the energy planners that the everything from the pricing estimates to the level of detail about what's in the building has been inaccurate. So some contractors have essentially had to start over and create their own reports to really figure out what's going on. So there's that to consider. Second priority is fuel switching. So, of course, you do the envelope first, and then you focus on your HVAC system. So in some cases, this could be replacing if your boiler is on its way out. Then you could look into replacing that with an all-electric system. In most cases, contractors have been recommending supplementing that system. So as this past winter reminded us, it can still get very cold in Vermont. So having that as a backup is certainly a good resiliency measure, with the understanding that, of course, you would use HVAC 90 to 95% of the time, but it's at least there when you need it. So, and also if a building doesn't already have air conditioning, installing that could be part of the heat pump system, or it could be its own standalone energy efficiency unit. And one thing to note is that the senior center did recently install heat pumps a couple of years ago. We saw that when we were touring those buildings. So any improvements to that building in that regard would mainly be looking at the existing programmable controls and seeing if there's any opportunities for improvement there. So that actually saves you guys a good amount of money right there. The third category is lighting and other mechanicals. So pretty straightforward upgrades to other systems as they relate to energy efficiency. So if lightings aren't LEDs already, then installing those or having retrofits, installing and calibrating building control systems, that sort of thing. Fourth priority, ventilation. So air exchange systems, as we know, play a crucial role in maintaining good air quality. So if there are substantial envelope improvements to the point where the building is very airtight, then the contractor might recommend installing an ERB system. We've seen this happen in a few towns in our region already, like West Haven. So if there's any leftover money there, that's a good use for it. And then, oh goodness, I see I didn't change the name for number 5, but anyway. The last priority is things like solar, EV chargers, battery backups, those resiliency measures that I mentioned. I did not include them in this packet, which I'll be handing out solely because, as I've mentioned, we've seen in other towns, all the costs get eaten up in those 1 to 3 priority items. So we are predicting at this point that we won't get to those measures, and there's multiple reasons why. For instance, solar wouldn't work here that we've discussed at length with Sarah. So we did not include those in the RFP. They are in the grant agreement, and we can eventually remove them if we determine that there's no not just funding, but no good reason to really keep them in sites. Anyways. There's also a few other things.
That doesn't include generators, though, right?
It does not, unfortunately, no. Believe me, as an emergency management planner, I have people ask me all the time where to get funding for generators, and it just isn't out there.
Well, funding up, that's
Other priorities, so ADA accommodations. This one's kind of loosey-goosey. BGS has had a general rule that the building should be more ADA accessible by the time the project is done. They haven't really given us a solid definition on what more means. So towns have taken this in a variety of ways, mainly building new entry ramps, maybe replacing doors to have the appropriate hardware, like those button openers, or what have you, as long as it's kept to 20% of the construction budget across all of the buildings. So for instance, in the town of Chittenden, they focused all of their energy improvement measures into their town office, and they used the entirety of their ADA budget on the Grange Hall, a ramp to get into the Grange Hall, which is an alternative meeting space. That is allowable if that is something that the town would so choose. And then similarly, soft costs, so things related to architectural and engineering and design services, permits, legal fees, clerking, etc. That is also allowed to be appropriated with the MERP funding, so long as, again, it doesn't exceed 20%. So that's just to give you a framework of when you're looking at these bids, whether they contain the whole package or not, making sure that those top priority items are addressed first. We need to make sure we align to that. But also, I just want to propose a couple of things for the board to consider while you're reviewing these bids. Of course, not to provide any bias into the process, but just things you might want to consider as you're looking through these. So whether there is a preference to hire a locally based firm or to hire an out-of-state based firm. So like I mentioned, we have at least one that's locally based here in Sudbury, one that's based out of state. So you might want to consider things like, does this firm have demonstrated experience with MERP projects in their resume? Do they have familiarity with the Rutland region? Do they have enough capacity to take this project on? That sort of thing. Does the firm indicate that it can complete all the construction by that 2028 deadline, as we've discussed as outlined in Act 172? Has the firm itemized all costs in their proposal and demonstrated compliance with those 20% caps for ADA improvements and soft costs? So the Turquoise America proposal, when I first looked through it, I noticed that their soft costs were above the 20, and I went back to them and I was like, hey, were you aware of this? And they were like, oh, yep, that's on us. It's just the default way that we outline the prices. So they gave me a modified version, and I double checked the numbers and everything aligned within those caps. So just looking out for things like that, because BGS has been pretty strict about staying within those caps. One other thing to note is that the town and village have already submitted reimbursement to BGS for a nominal amount of soft costs. So the prices that you see in the final proposal, especially for Architect, are probably going to change a little bit just to adjust for the soft costs that have already been reimbursed for. Did the firm attend the mandatory pre-bid walkthrough meeting or otherwise participate in a site visit? Or in general, do they demonstrate any degree of familiarity with the buildings? Would it be preferable to have both the town and village projects handled by the same firm? That's a big one. So it might make more sense to streamline and have, so for instance, Architect, like I mentioned, was the only one who submitted for the village. So maybe that might play a factor in, well, we want the same firm to handle both projects. Or maybe that's not something you care about as much, but it's something to consider. Is the price proposal less than or equal to the total grant award amount? So again, $500,000 for Poultney Town and $89,871.03 for Poultney Village. So again, this RFP for the town only covers 2 of the 4 assessed buildings. So it might be tempting to look at the total cost amount of the bids and go, oh, great, this one is, much less than the $500,000 cap. Of course, we want to reward that one. But one thing to keep in mind is that because all those funds must be distributed by the end of this year, we might not know the final cost of phase 1. We have estimates, of course, but we might not know what that looks like dialed in until we get to that deadline. And then it's like, oh no, we suddenly have $200,000 that we don't know what to do with, and it would be a shame to give that up. So, and also, again, the last 2 buildings that we're looking at, town garage, we have no idea what's happening with the town garage. Would it make sense to, at this late in the game, to set aside money for that? I don't know. That's something you guys have to think about. The Stonebridge Inn. My understanding with talking with Sarah is that's the building that needs the least amount of work. So maybe it wouldn't be the biggest deal in the world if it didn't end up getting any funding in the end. My understanding is that Poultney especially just threw all the buildings at the wall that got assessed and saw what stuck, and everything has to stick. So that gives you choices. I guess in conclusion, what I want to wrap up with is that when you're looking through these, remember that there are always opportunities to implement change of work orders with the contractor and scope of work amendments with BGS. So the proposal for services that you read through over the next few weeks is not the end all be all. And given that rapidly approaching December 2026 deadline, it's crucial that the town and village award the bid to the firm that best meets both local needs and the intent of Act 172. So you want to focus on making sure that whatever firm you award the bid to has substantial experience, is capable of being adaptable and coordinating with various stakeholders. You'll have to talk with BGS, you'll have to talk with us at the RRPC, you'll have to talk with the municipality, you'll have to talk with the Vermont Division of Historic Preservation to quickly and effectively implement these high quality energy conservation measures. So that's really the goalpost here at the end of the day. And so also to reiterate that RRPC is here to help throughout the process. We do not, unfortunately, we are still short several staff people at the RRPC, so we don't have as much capacity to take on a direct grant administration role. That being said, as I mentioned, most of our towns are already well through the process. So we will sit down with Poultney weekly. We will attend all of the project meetings. We're willing to do everything short of submitting the quarterly reports for you folks to help you guys see through that December 2026 deadline. So myself and Sean Betty, we are meeting weekly with Paul and Bruce and Bob Mitnick for the historic window specs that we're hoping to have drawn up for the town office. And so we're available in case you have any questions throughout the process at all. But I've drafted up these packets with everything I just went through tonight to serve as reminders. The envisioned deadline at this point is that between now and the next select board meeting, you folks will have had a chance to read through all the bids, come to a decision about who to award the bid to, and then would start to negotiate contracts with the chosen bidder. Ideally, the work would get started, if not in April, then by late spring, early June, so that all the design and everything can be wrapped up close to the end of the year. We can get that construction going. So it's a tight deadline, but I believe we can do it. Sarah did tell me that Poultney has a knack for coming in at the last second and getting things done. So, we'll put faith in, having that happen again. And, I don't have printed copies of the bids, but I'm sure Paul would be happy to provide them. And in the meantime, I have had a chance to read through at least most of them. We did have a few come in last minute today that I haven't had a chance to look through yet, but I'd be happy to answer any questions in the meantime. That might be hard not having had a chance to look through the bids quite yet. I know I just gave a lengthy presentation, but while I'm here, I'll be happy to answer any questions or anything else.
Does that form have all the priority list on it that you're going to give us?
Yes, and there's also a link to a frequently asked questions document that is on the BGS website that goes really in depth into the weeds of well, the first half is more so from when we had the assessment phase, and it's not as relevant anymore. But the second half really gets into the implementation phase and what that looks like, and a lot of common questions that have come up. So I guess you could always look there first if you had specific questions, and if that still wasn't answered, then you could come to Paul or myself or Sean, and we would be able to help you out. But yes, I specifically made up this document to outline those priorities and things for you folks to consider as I just rattled off. So yes.
And then one other quick question. So if we do a project and we say this much money's going to go to the town office and we finish or do something else, can that money be carried to another project?
So long as that building was assessed during the assessment phase.
Before.
Yes.
Okay.
And of course, all of that depends on how much time we have left to get engineering services done and get those things in, which is why we're trying to kind of package at least two of the buildings together and from the forefront and see how far that takes us. For instance, the town of Benson, they originally had two buildings, their town office and their community hall. And they've discovered that the town office is going to eat up pretty much the entirety of their funding. So they actually need to speak with BGS about what that's going to look like for their scope of work, because they originally had the community hall. And now it's like, oh, we're not gonna have any funding left over for that to do meaningful work. But that's just one case example. Especially since you guys received the full slug, I feel like there are substantial opportunities to make good improvements to both buildings. Maybe not perfect. Some buildings they have a lot of historical limitations, like in Pollitt. They're never gonna have a perfectly insulated building, but anything you can do to improve the situation is really what we're looking for here. So
Whew, thank you, Maggie. I thought I talked fast.
Yes, I apologize. Maybe I should have started with that as my disclaimer. I do tend to talk very fast.
There was a question online. Do you still have a question, Wendy?
No, she answered it. Thank you.
Okay.
So pick a better next meeting. That's what we do.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And then we'll circle back with Paul. He and Bruce will take the lead on getting that negotiated, and we'll get that executed. And
ARCA 10, is that what you said?
ARCA 10 LLC.
Tend?
It's like architect, but ARCA 10.
Okay. You said they're great and they do MERPs and
not to provide any bias, but I can say I have worked with them personally, and I very much.
I'm unofficially making a mental note.
Unofficial.
Yeah.
And
May have wrote it.
Yeah, but support local firms, based in Sudbury.
Yeah.
So
they're great and they're local.
write that down. Right up to the road.
Hey.
All right. Well, thank you.
And I'll just pass this out, or feel free to maybe take one and pass it along. Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. Are we meeting tomorrow?
We are, yes, because we're meeting with Greg Szynski about this.
It's like 10?
Thank
you. At 9.
9.
The
Okay.
time is up.
Okay.
Good thing is this is recorded, so you can go back and slow down me, see him rolling through everything else.
I like it. You got a lot. Perfect.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Have a safe ride back.
Yes.
So we good to go to road report now, Paul?
Yeah, we are. Sorry, Joel.
First, I do want to thank Joel, because Joel got together our first aid CPR AED training, which was wonderful. We had a lot of people there, and it was through him that got everybody together and had it all set up for us. So great job. We appreciate it. She was good. Got to learn a lot, do a lot. So it's good. So thank you for that, first of all.
Since everybody else mentioned the town garage, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it myself. The excessive leaks during inclement weather is it's progressing the rusting and damage of the tools and equipment in the garage. So I just don't want it to go by the wayside, and all of a sudden, we don't talk about it for a while, and then all of a sudden, hey, where's this coming out of? We haven't talked about this. Why do we all of a sudden need a new town garage? So I'm just gonna keep it fresh. Not to be annoying about it, but just, so everybody knows it's noted. Grading, don't expect to really see much grading until maybe May, after the frost is completely out and the roads are not absolutely drenched. Once they're damp, that's okay. That's a great time to grade, but when they're absolutely drenched or they still have frost in, we're probably going to cause more damage than we are good. And you don't want to see that. We don't want to see that. None of us want to see that. We're currently working on identifying where we're going to pave this year in our spring projects. And after some recent discussion with an engineer that has quite a good variety of job experience out on the roads and bridges and stuff, I do feel it's necessary at this point to start milling all of the roads that are milling all of the roads before we just pave over them. Asphalt has no structural integrity, so I'm not a paver. Don't know it all, so I'm not gonna pretend like I do. But from people that are more experienced and know a little bit more about that, I do think we should take that into consideration. So.
What's it called? Milling?
Milling,
Milling.
yeah, it'd be like
Right
tearing
now.
down the last layer of asphalt as the village has to do.
I know the guy that was doing East Poultney did say that.
Yeah,
He was doing it, said
yeah.
it's expensive. That's why it wasn't.
It's about 30. So Wilk quoted it out to about $30,000 a mile. I don't know about Pike, and this year I'll certainly get multiple comparable quotes from multiple paving companies before we make a decision on anything.
We're looking to reclaiming it in place, reclamation too, where they grind it and fix it back in
Full depth.
full depth. You know, at one time spoken to Pike about that, and the cost wasn't as insane as you think it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good too.
That's also a process that for some of our places. So I'll just tell you right now, I'm looking at Hillside Road. There's a short jaunt that kicks off of Hillside that goes to Lewis Road. It's not even a tenth of a mile. That would be 8/10 of a mile, which would leave us some money left over towards reclaiming. I mean, depending on the quote, but towards reclaiming that portion of the road and or crack sealing some of the last 5 years worth of paving that we've had. It's already starting to go to crap because let's face it, there's no base and there's no sub base underneath these paved roads in the town. And if you don't have anything good underneath it, you can't expect asphalt to do anything good for it, or for it to last any reasonable amount of time. So the other two are potentially Farnham and White Road, which are I would encourage board members to drive over those and just look at the alligator backing. And I mean, if we just pave over that, we're kind of just throwing money away. It looks like a little bit more up front, but it's going to save us a lot of headache in the long run. And at some point, we just got to say it's time to start rectifying these issues instead of band-aiding continuously.
Well, it's making the roads get so high too that it's causing a lot of
Exactly.
other issues
Yeah.
as well. I noticed that in Spillane, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as we learned from last year out there where we did the bank stabilization and the Grant culvert and East Poultney in the area of Town Farm Road, we had 18 to 22 inches of asphalt. And that's an inch and a half lift each time it's paved. So how many years is that how many years of paving before nobody ever milled it down or anything? Salt Street bridge lights went out, defaulted to the blinking. Sunday, I received multiple calls and texts, and finally the state police woke me up. So we had to do a little troubleshooting on that and got it back up and running. And there will be some discussion with Glenn as to ensure that the same cause does not make that happen again.
Did we ever have a conversation with them last time that they need to find somebody locally to adjust these?
That they need to.
Also, so it doesn't take so long.
Yeah, I was advised by them that their closest guy is an hour and a half away, and that's basically the best they can do. But I also didn't say we need you to get somebody to be close by to maintain this.
If there's an accident there because if they're both going away, then we're gonna.
So they didn't have the power connected on the northeast facing light, the northeast facing side of the old bridge. There's lead cord wrapped around that one, and that's facing across the west for that driveway of that house, the first house at the north end of the bridge. And if one of those signals goes down or the power goes out to one of those, it throws the whole system off. That's the way AOT wanted the thing. They didn't just want to go off of the main north end and the main south end facing. And then if one of the secondary or I don't know if that's the proper term that they're calling it, but they don't want to go off of one of the driveway ones going down and default that to flashing. Instead, they just want the whole system to crash for, I don't know, it's a reason unbeknownst to me, but anyways, everything else is hooked to hard power to the neighbors, and that one was not hooked to any power, even though there's a lead cord that could have gone to the house directly behind it, and the solar panel was in a stored position.
Is it now hitched to power? I mean, is it something
I
that's
have
gonna?
not gone back to look at it. I had to pull the generator out of their trailer, out of their job trailer, and hook it up and wait a minute and then go hit the reset button.
This is our like third time this has happened.
This is the third time that this has happened, yes.
So
So
maybe we should, tell them we need someone here, really. I mean,
I'm told they're
Well,
gonna be
that's
having
on that
a
road.
meeting, that they're gonna be having a meeting this week. I'm not sure if the town, if any of us from the town have the ability to sit in on that meeting, but I am aware that somebody from GPI is gonna be bringing it up because they've been documenting everything as it goes along as well.
it's not like it's a straight shot and you can see it and hope that everybody's gonna stop and
Yeah, right.
go. There's a
Right.
corner unless you get out of the car and run in the middle and say, okay, you come, I'm gonna go, you know what I mean? That's,
Yeah.
Yeah, fortunately, there wasn't a lot of traffic yesterday morning, but some of the vehicles, they absolutely flew over the bridge for not knowing whether somebody's coming or not. I was kind of
Shocking.
yeah, I was a little, I mean, I always expect the worst, but I was still a little taken back, so.
and there was just an accident on that road, so it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, scary stuff though. It'd be nice to figure that out.
Oh, well, we were kind of in the topic of talking about town buildings and whatnot. I just want to make it known, as some people don't seem to understand the condition of this building too. The highway department shoveled off the roof, this flat roofed portion of this building at least 6 times that I can recall this winter to prevent leakage and prevent what we had happen during one of our meetings last year from happening again. So just to keep that as a reminder for people. The final thing that I have is I'm already told that we're probably gonna go into a salt shortage maybe next December, and that's coming from multiple states and multiple different entities. So I don't know, that's speculation as far as I'm concerned, or whatever at this point, but if there's any talk of it, and we've already had it for the last 2 years, I'd be willing to bet that it's, we need to formulate a plan to protect the town or consider changing our winter maintenance policy.
Did you change the salt shed? I think were you gonna make it higher or something so you could get in there? Was there something?
With that current salt shed, I mean, unless you build those walls up, I'm also not a mason. But I don't mean that in a,
Oh, I know, I know,
I don't know if you can do that, but without raising those walls up, if we tried to stack our salt any higher, we'd literally push the wooden portion off of the poured cement portion. For some reason, they thought it was a great idea to raise the building up really tall, but the problem is you can't put salt in there without pushing the wooden portion of it out. There's nothing that prevents the walls from just getting toppled over,
So even if we got salt ahead of time, we have nowhere to put it.
basically.
Anybody online has a question about the lights at the bridge?
Yes, Paul, Mark Flynn. In regards to that light going out, and I see some members of the fire department in the audience. As Cheryl mentioned, we did have an accident down on 31 here recently. Is there any kind of contraption that the rescue squad and or the fire department could have to potentially freeze those lights? I saw the first vehicles come through and literally stood out there and stopped traffic from my house to try to help the fire department through, but of course they couldn't see what I was trying to attempt to do for them to keep people from coming over the bridge. Is that anything that could be discussed with, as long as you're talking about the lights?
You're here, Aaron's here.
It would be up to the town to have the discussion with them if there's any device. I can imagine that, they have difficulties enough keeping the lights to go accurately that any device that we were given would, mess them up pretty good. So thank you very much, Mark. I did see you out in the street that day and it was very helpful.
I mean, it's to the point where we have to have a flagger or somebody there if the lights go out. Someone go down there and I'm not illegal. I remember I did it once. I'm not a legal flagger, so we can't, not anybody can do it, right? It's in their protocol and
You have to be a certified flyer.
you have to have a little outfit, yeah. I know, I got in trouble once because I was out there. I'm like,
I would throw in there, when we have been through there for a few incidents now, if they're on site, they're running up and down the bridge, making sure they shut everything down and getting people clear that bridge as fast as they can for us, regardless of light state. So when they are on site, they're very receptive to getting us to as fast as possible. So
how long would you say the blinking lights were on Sunday? I mean, I got a call early, but you know, like how long they were.
I was told
Yeah.
by a resident right at the south end of the bridge that when he left for work at 1 something in the morning, they were flashing.
Okay.
Now has direct contact to me too, so we can nip it in the bud a little faster than 8:30 in the morning later, you know, whatever the previous times were. The last 2 times I think one was like 9, one was like 10 or 11. The other 2 were Saturdays. This time was a Sunday. Said the traffic was a little bit lighter, but
Doesn't matter. It's only this one.
nonetheless, nobody uses due caution when they go over the bridge when it's flashing like that. And I mean,
I'm afraid
I
you should just
can't
can't
believe
see.
that, but
Can't see. Yeah.
that's all I've got. Unless anybody has any questions, comments, concerns.
I think the crews, we have a couple of more things we have to work on. So you'll get a hold of them and ask them what the protocol is, what they think when we are getting that up and running. If someone closes, someone's driving an hour and a half.
Lights.
Yeah, if someone's driving an hour and a half, a lot can happen in an hour and a half. If we only find out after 2, that means that bridge could be going like this for a couple hours.
Yeah, so I'll inquire to that question about, you know, if there's something that they can do for the fire department for emergency services.
So they can get
Also
here.
ensure that we're not gonna have the same mistake repeated for a 4th time, because I mean, if you can learn from your mistake by the 2nd time, then there's kind of an issue. So
Yeah,
that's
great. Thank you. Appreciate it,
Sure.
Bill. Thank the crew. Appreciate it. Whew. All right, Paul.
Remember that, because Win is doing a lot of the bridges around here. Like this, is it like an only us problem? Do we know? Like they have to have some sort of, this is like, you know, kind of not acceptable.
I know an hour and a half seems a long way if something happens and there's nothing we can do because legally they have to do it themselves. Is that,
Yeah, it's a weird situation.
no, I have the protocol to reset the lights and stuff.
so do we blame you if you're not here?
Yeah, I guess that. I guess why not? Everybody else does. So. Everybody's got a scapegoat. So.
Thank you, Joel.
You're welcome.
All right, that's something we can work on. Thank you. All right, sorry, Paul.
So I just want to bring the board up to date on the delinquent tax collection. Last week was the deadline to enter into a payment plan with the town before proceeding to a tax sale. I have a number of payment plans. I have a couple that have not been executed. I've had several people pay off all their delinquent taxes. There's a couple, there's a Board of Abatement hearing, I think it's April 1st.
Wednesday, yeah.
And there's a couple of those folks that were waiting to see what that resulted in before we talked about a payment plan. There's at least one person paid a majority of their delinquent taxes, but they're still waiting to see what the result of the abatement hearing is, if anything. And so I've talked to our lawyers and they just want me to forward the list of who's still outstanding. And I think pending those couple of abatement hearings, are going to proceed with the next step of the delinquent tax collection, which entails doing title searches, notifying lien holders, if any, and starting the tax sale process.
Thank you. I know it's a lot of work.
Chipping away.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work, paperwork, so appreciate it.
Next week or next time we have a meeting, I can probably give you a better idea of how much has been collected, how much is still outstanding, as far as what we started with it. Because I'll remind you that some of the delinquent taxes we couldn't go after if they're only 1 year old and some other factors. The clerk has asked me, there's 3 liquor license renewals. One is for Shaw's, one is for the Lake St. Catherine Country Club, and one is for the Poultney Pub. So if someone wants to make a
motion to renew the 3 liquor licenses.
Second
Second.
by all in favor? Any opposed?
So I have Cheryl sign where it says approve.
I feel like we
please.
sign liquor licenses all the time.
Yeah.
Thanks to sell liquor in town.
Salt ham it.
Yeah, I feel like we're
It's a
always
big
selling.
party.
Just a note, we advertised the capital planning grant RFP this afternoon. We've already had 2 companies inquire about it, so I sent the RFP to those 2 different companies that have already made inquiries about it. And just wanted to let the board know that is out there now. Dovetailing a little bit with the Rec Hub presentation, with the board's approval, I'd like to explore getting some Brownfields funds to explore the highway garage property, as far as whether or not there's contamination that needs to be remediated there. So I spoke with the Rutland Regional Planning Commission, the executive director, through email, and there are funds available. So I just got to get the board's approval to apply for some of those funds, and I will do that. So I think that's the next natural step, whether or not the rec hub goes there or the highway department stays there. I think we need to know what we're dealing with as far as what's in the ground.
You need a motion to do so.
If you don't mind.
I'd make a motion to allow Paul to explore Brownsfield grant funding.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Abby, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Paul.
I spoke with the Board of Trustees on the merger committee meeting. We really need to have a meeting. I had suggested to the trustees and they seemed amenable. The last several times that the merger committee met, we met on a day that, an afternoon before a regular select board meeting, and I would suggest if this board is amenable to do that we do that. Our next meeting is the 13th of April, and thereafter is the 27th of April. If this board has an appetite for, actually,
Did we meet at 5 o'clock or 5:30? Was it 5 o'clock?
I think we've met at 5:30. I would say if the board's amenable, this board's amenable, the 27th, so that I have time to alert the trustees that that's the day that we would like to meet with them.
How do you feel about that? Abby, can you make it the 27th? Monday, the 27th at 5:30? We have a select board meeting at 6:30.
April, that is.
Yeah, April. Alan?
5:30, you said?
5:30.
That's fine.
This is looking forward into May, and I'll remind this board at our next couple meetings, but May 11th, which would be this board's first meeting in May. I also have at 7:30 PM the informational meeting for the village annual meeting. So that village meeting starts at 7:30, so this meeting on May 11th will be a somewhat brief and truncated meeting so that I can get to the other meeting. And I'll remind the board in the meetings in April that's looming.
We can do that.
I'm sorry.
We can do that.
We received today, if we would like to participate in the fiscal year 27 municipal roads grants and aid program. We received correspondence today that that's opening up and we need to submit the letter of intent. I think it was by sometime in May. I've already filled it out. It's submitted by May 1st. I've already filled it out, so I just would like a motion for someone to say we want to participate. It's basically identifies MRGP construction work that needs to be done anyways, and it helps fund that work. So it would behoove us to participate in that.
Have a motion for the roads grant, anybody?
Make a motion for Paul to submit for the MRGP roads grant.
Second?
Grants and aid program.
Grants and aid program.
Grants and aids, okay, seconded by Al. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Paul. A little bit of
I think, was that an RPC meeting or was that you attended today, Joel, or what was that meeting?
REMC.
REMC, was that well attended?
Oh, it was a small, subcommittee today. The big one, the quarterly one was last Wednesday.
Did you participate in that one?
I did, yeah. Are you looking for, you want to report on it or?
I didn't know about
I was just trying to answer your questions.
About the one today, so when you texted me this morning, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know about it.
Yeah, so
Usually I never short on words. Yes, I did.
I'm not, yeah, I know. That's why I figured I'd try to be.
You want to tell what already MC management?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm just trying to recall what,
While he's looking that up, we do
have.
have to submit our renewed local emergency management plan. So I know Joel was working on it, and I told Joel that I usually work with Billy Jones, who's part of that program. So we will be updating that. It's interesting, Cheryl, that you asked about generators, because that our emergency shelter is the high school and there is no generator.
No, it's like crazy.
I think when you were here, Sarah, we tried to find some funding for a generator, but we were not successful.
Yeah.
And I've sort of, over the years, I've put a bug in Joe Bonison's ear that it doesn't make any sense that they don't have a generator.
Big Jim.
Did you want to say anything, John?
Today was just a small subcommittee. It was the community planning drill, getting prepared for the meeting for the actual sub-region drill that's coming up May 6th of this year, which will be at the Poultney Fire Department, and that will include the town of Poultney, Middletown Springs, Wells, I believe Ira. I'm not certain. I'm kind of still learning my.
That sounds good.
What does a drill mean?
Does that sound right?
It's a facilitated discussion.
Oh,
So they'll be giving us a scenario to walk through the facilitated discussion from people from BEM, the REMC committee as well, to see how well we have stuff planned out as of such community area, which is us, Wells, Middletown.
That'll be in our plan that we'll have filed. It'll be here. So if something happens, everybody knows the plan.
So we will be
Yeah.
using the plan to go through how we handle whatever emergency type event they throw at us, to hammer out and see where we lack and where we can improve.
Was that like the program we did a couple of years ago at the high school?
Different. That was school related type
Yeah.
one. This one will be
But it's like a scenario.
yes,
Yeah.
scenario based discussion.
We have to.
When that gets done, you'll share it with us.
Right down.
So when that gets done, then it'll be shared with us. So if something happens, there'll be someplace in the town or someplace where everybody will know, this is what happened and this is where to go, whether it's the rec
So
call or
that,
something.
all that stuff, then, they discussed the first one they had, how it went and what to improve on. That stuff will all be, come back to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Joel.
There is some people that came in that I don't. There's a couple of people in the back that I don't see and I don't know.
I'm doing all, but that's.
I know.
Yeah, I thought you were, what's your last name, Toby?
Has to be.
CRISBEM?
EIN.
Okay. TOBY or TOBEY?
TOBY. Nailed it.
And then someone by you,
Allie K.
Allie K. ALLEY? Allie K.
Muhammad Ali.
No, how many?
KAIE?
Yes.
Hey, look at me.
Good job, Paul.
I know you.
That's the first.
Okay, thank you, because I have to take attendance and if I say it was here,
It's good.
I get in trouble.
Spelling, good spelling, good job. Thank you. Okay. We want to just update about Scott quick too, that we're getting that information.
Sorry?
You want to just update about Scott too?
I was reading a chat here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Oh.
about Scott so we can tell him it's coming.
Oh, about the deputy sheriff?
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, I emailed the sheriff this morning and the office manager at the sheriff's office and who I have to request, but I asked them to have the new deputy stop at my office, a formal request. And hopefully the next time he's on board and we're still open, he will stop by.
We said that last time that we would get that up and running. We have not yet met him. I've seen him in a car, but I've not been able to stop. So we still don't have new information. We do have a new sheriff right now. We don't know too much about him or have a number. But Corporal Graham is still our person. So we are on it. We just Scott. So does he have a last name? We're not sure.
Good question. I asked him what the last thing was and they didn't tell me.
He was at town meeting, but yep.
I think it's just officers. You need to speed around to it.
If you speed around, I'm sure he'll tell you his last name. Because he does sit in certain places. So I was gonna pull over and introduce myself, but I just couldn't because I was going somewhere and I was like, that's him. How are you?
We'll find them.
We've asked him, but he's been too busy or hasn't been able to. So hopefully we'll get that. We will get the number because we want everybody to have it. And we'll put it on the website. So yes, as promised. Hopefully. Gee. All right. Anything else, Paul, or anybody online have a question?
There was just one about some possible funding for a generator.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Oh, with that funding thing too, and the REMC topic there, let it be known that there's no money coming from FEMA right now. Is there? You know, if we're not already considering that, so.
It's crazy. Generators are so big.
Potentially a huge thing. Or is like our public works mutual aid agreement goes and stuff, because it's they're reimbursed for being on.
Anything else?
I did have executive session on here, but I don't, yeah, I do have to brief you on one litigation thing.
Okay, so we won't go next. Do you want to have, Aaron? You guys want to?
Minutes of your time, real quick. All I have is the conference report for the month of February. February thankfully was a little slower than January, but March, the itinerary off.
Thank you.
And update you on the replacement utility truck. So the truck is actually over at the fabricator's shop in Fairhaven. The platform box is already built, or the platform body is built, and hopefully it will be attached in the near next week or so. And they're in the works of starting to build the boxes for it. So it is moving ahead a little slower than originally anticipated, but we haven't found much that moves fast these days. So,
Let's see.
yeah,
Staying on budget and everything.
Yeah, everything's still so far. So we did end up going with him doing a custom box body for us instead of just buying a flatbed, throwing boxes on it, be like, all right, does the stuff fit? We went through 3 revisions. I think we're at with him laying out the boxes, how big they need to be, and having it built that way. We're still waiting on his final, but his prices so far, we've worked it out. We have the money inside the contingency, as well as we've already started some stopgap measures on other parts of the truck that we're trying to keep down. So no concern right now that will be out of budget. So just tighter to the top number than we really wanted to be. So, Maple Fest over the weekend, we were down at the Catholic Center with 2 trucks for a few hours. Met with quite a few people. Did have one person take an application.
Ooh, nice.
So we've been working on the gentleman for, I think,
Been working on
2 or 3 years, but he has paper in his hand now, so we're a lot closer than I ever been.
Do you know how important Maple Fest is to get yourself out there?
It is. So,
Was the rescue squad there?
they did come down.
Perfect.
Yep, they were there. There was actually some people that their little ones took them to the ambulance away from us, the fire trucks, and we cried for a little bit. It was okay. Most of the time, they're like fire truck, not fire.
That is
So,
how important it is. Thank you. That's good. Thanks.
calling that for you.
Oh, thank you.
Great. Thank you for all your great work.
fella.
Thank you for allowing us when we use the firehouse for all the voting and stuff. All the work you have to do for us to get set up. Yeah. Much appreciated. Is there comments? Executive session.
Sure.
Public comments? Do I have anybody? Patty?
I have a quick question which probably cannot be answered. When will the old bridge be taken out? And the reason I'm asking is I've taken pictures from day one all the way up. So just my own archive stuff, I would just like to see the bridge.
You get these bills back?
Me?
Yeah, I don't know. It's about the bridge.
They're really good.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet.
They give you the updates all the time.
It's a AOT.
Email.
You can sign up.
What's happening.
It has like updates.
Yeah.
Just next
Sign up.
phase. Keep it pretty.
Yeah, the phase off.
And taking pictures all the way
I
along.
put the tech reels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's email.
Weekly?
Whenever they do something, pretty often.
It's weekly, yeah.
Yeah. It's really good. It was before we got the temporary bridge. Remember they updated all the time, so it's really worth it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I understand if they were redoing.
I'm not sure they
I don't
taken
know
the
why
whole
I
thing
can
down.
actually get them, but it's okay. Okay.
Fires.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really pretty light. Pay attention.
Is that it, Patty, or you have something else? No, that was it. That was it. Great. Anybody else?
Oh, I have questions.
Very silly.
Last week. Can the zoning fee schedule please be put on the website? Because that would be really, really helpful people. And
That was on the website.
the fee schedule, I didn't see. There's a permit on there. I didn't see a fee schedule.
Oh, okay. I'll check because I thought Betsy put it on there, but
Okay, and then all the appointments and stuff, and all the election stuff has to be updated too.
we're in a little transition, Mary, because Sarah, so we're trying to figure out whose job is what until we find someone else to
Yeah,
help out with
I
it. So
know,
that's
hard.
that's a little bit, we're
hard.
all a little overloaded.
She's a huge loss. But
We lost an all-star.
Yeah,
we did,
so
yeah.
I'm working on it.
I have 2 questions about Paul's duties. It's a town energy coordinator and town services officer. Can you give just a brief description of those?
The service officer is easier because if somebody wants to sue the town, I'm the one they serve the paperwork to.
Oh, okay.
Very important.
The energy coordinator is a little bit more murky. I wish you'd asked that when Maggie was here.
Oh,
Wow.
But I could find out what I'm supposed to be doing with that.
okay, that sounds good. And also under the last meeting, Bruce Williams has agreed to be clerk of the works. Who is Bruce Williams? And what's the clerk of the works duties for the MERP?
So Bruce Williams is actually the chair of the Board of Trustees for the library, and he has a background in instruction.
Okay.
He worked for Rutland Public Schools for, I think, 20 or 30 years. He worked at Castleton College. He worked at Green Mountain College in the facilities department. He was the clerk of the works, who was basically the eyes and ears for the town of Poultney. As a project is being done, are they doing it according to the scope of the project, of the contract?
So he's like a project coordinator or something?
Kind of, sort of like a general contractor, but he's really the one making sure, oh yeah, they're doing that the way it's supposed to be done. He was the clerk of the works when the town of Poultney did the addition to our library. And he was the clerk of the works for the town of Castleton when they recently did some ADA upgrades to the Castleton Library.
So is he pretty much going to be on site when work is being done or going to inspect?
Kind of just being inspecting, and, you know, because of his construction background, some of the meetings that we have, the weekly meetings we have with the RRPC, you know, he knows the question to ask, like, when you do this work, are you testing for asbestos? Are you that kind of stuff?
Okay.
Just someone with much greater knowledge than me in the construction field, for sure.
Okay. That sounds good. Let me see. Yeah, today. Better. One more quick question. Who's the new employee in the office?
We are working with Linda Bapty as sort of a fill-in for when Nisha's not at the office, whether it's for personal reasons, you know, whether she's sick or on vacation. Typically, Susie Kashuba had been filling that position, but when she passed, we sort of not only did we lose a great person, but lost our support here. So Linda worked at the Citizens Bank in town here, and then when they went to West Paulet, and as everyone knows, that bank closed, and we asked Linda if she'd be interested in filling in, and she has agreed to, and we've been training her, and she's actually getting handle of you know, the system and stuff like that. So that's, if that's who you're referring to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, good. Thank you.
Call her a pinch hitter.
It's great. She's doing a good job. That it? I'm good. I know, just was making sure she was finished. Okay. Yes, Michelle.
So, this is probably a little too early, but when you're talking about moving the town garage for the rec hub, if that ever really happens, is it on the table at some point, or will it be on the table at some point to do it in phases? Like the sand shed is kind of needs help, and so could it be possible that we move just that someplace, even if it's not the whole entire town garage acreage? Like, could it be separated?
We haven't even got to that point yet.
Correct.
We are actively looking for another place for the town garage and seeing what we can do first. That's our priority first, and then we'll.
Right, but do we have to have one place for the entire garage, or can it be like, yes, the sand shed could be someplace, and then the others?
The sand shed will be something that we talked about, like, what are we gonna do with it? So that we have talked about, like, what are we gonna do with it? Is it gonna stay? Is it worth moving it? So that is something when we find a spot, like, what, you know.
So that's for future discussions.
Yeah.
And the possibility of a phasing.
I'm sure that's a possibility because it's gonna be funding wise, so I'm sure that's gonna be a possibility and will need to be, but yeah, go to the voters, so.
We'll talk with Joel.
Good question.
Figure out how to make it work.
Highway department is one of our top priorities. We've been working on it. Hopefully some, yes, perfect. Do I see anybody else out there?
Just really quick,
Poultney.
you guys may have already addressed this, but is Sarah's position, have we figured that out yet? Or what next steps are for replacing her or not replacing her?
We are working on it. I tell them we're.
Yeah, we're right now we're we're kind of working on, an interim basis to kind of fill in, where things like the college right now and some other things are highly pressing. We're working with some individuals on a contractual sort of basis.
Subcontract.
But we do plan on filling that position when, if everything cools down where we have a minute to breathe, we do plan on filling that position because it's,
Vital.
it's become very vital to the community for sure.
And for us, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good question.
I do have one more question. Have you heard anything what's going on with the GMC campus? With Bachta's, looking for takers?
I've only heard what you've probably heard.
Or what the paper has called us about and told us, so we have not gotten anything formal or anything, to the town. So just even, yes.
Just a comment, it would have been nice if he donated a couple buildings, usable buildings to the town. That's my 2 cents worth.
Well, we just so there's that's a whole can of worms, but it's not as easy as that one. Some people think the number of people that called said he's donating, why can't we just buy it and then pay it off? It's a lot going on in that facility that people don't really know right now. So it's a lot of discussion that has to be happened to make any final decisions. Thanks. All right. Anybody else? Anybody online? No?
No one's got their hand up for a chat.
All right. We good to executive session?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
So we're getting a new dog. No, not all. Who's friend? She's I don't know. Which body is our case.
Thank you, Alan.
I need a second.
You should get case.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to leave executive session.
I'd make a motion to leave executive session.
1 second.
Second.
Seconded by Alan. All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Oh, no action taken. Did you say
Want
that?
to make a motion? Did someone do the board orders?
No. Let's do that first.
Motion to sign board order.
Second?
I'll second.
Second by Val. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then we need adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I don't.
Val? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, folks. Have a nice evening.